All right, it's 6 a.m. and on the East Coast, it is Thursday, February 1st. This is Fox and Friends, and look who's back. We'll talk to her later. Brand new video shows suspected illegal migrants land on San Diego Beach and run like hell as a rec center turns into a migrant shelter in Boston. Lawrence Jones is live there this morning.
Plus, all new video this morning showing the Kansas City Chiefs party host in handcuffs after 3 of his friends were found frozen to death in his backyard. As we learn, he has now checked himself into rehab.
So much news about that. Plus, the House of Representatives passing a bill to ban Hamas terrorists from entering our country. But 2 members of the squad voted against it.
What?
Those two.
Believe that.
Yeah. Fox and Friends starts right now for the first day of February. And remember, mornings are better with friends.
Hashtag.
We begin with a Fox News alert. 3 people are dead and 9 others were hurt in a construction site collapse last night in Idaho, right near the Boise airport. A hangar that was being built suddenly buckled, sending a crane crashing down.
5 of the injured people were rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The fire department called it a catastrophic incident. Listen to this.
We've accounted for everybody that was in or around the collapse area. We did have some that were challenging, and that there was hoists and so forth that our technical rescue team made entry and were able to rescue those people.
All right, well, we'll follow that. Meanwhile, authorities are working to determine what caused the collapse at the privately owned site. Airport operations were not affected.
Right, exactly. So it sounds like I was just reading the local paper in Boise, and the new hangar was for the Jackson Jet Center right next to the airport itself. At the time that it happened, about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, apparently there were about 30 people who were working on it. And apparently a crane in the middle folded in half, and the building collapsed into the shape essentially of an M. And a number of the victims were on a hoist at the time that the structure fell.
So does it seem like these are construction workers maybe? They were building this hangar.
Absolutely.
And it collapsed?
Yeah. 5 of the people who were taken to the hospital are still in critical condition at this hour.
So is this a private,
three killed.
private, I know it's a private hangar. This is next to the airport. Is this to house private planes?
That is unclear. I just know it's a private business, and the airport operations at the Boise airport were not impacted. But you can see that right there, the crane folded in half while they were trying to put it together, but it just... something went haywire.
All right, 3 minutes now after the top of the hour. The number one story, most of the issues, this issue mostly likely number one in your house is illegal immigration in America. The breakdown of our border. We always focus on Texas and Arizona, but we cannot forget about California. The second video, very similar to what we saw a couple of days ago. You have an operation now where these illegal immigrants take this boat, they beach it in La Jolla. If you haven't been to San Diego, it is probably the nicest city in San Diego. It is rich. It's upper class. I mean, these cliffs are unbelievable. If you don't hit a seal on the way in, you'll be surprised. These guys beach it. There's cars waiting for them, and they go running in. They are now gone.
Yeah, that first video you saw, the most recent one, shows that boat with suspected illegal immigrants landing on the San Diego beach. And then the last week video we saw of the boat full of the undocumented migrants. They were landing on the beach in San Diego, too, and they were running into this wealthy La Jolla neighborhood. Most of the houses there, the average house is like more than $2 million. You can see it's a beautiful residential area. But this county spent $3 million caring for illegals. They're allotting another $3 million. Last year, over 300 migrants were moved into the San Diego airport because the shelters there ran out of room. This is the largest border city in California.
Right, and this channel is one of the only places you're going to see these images. Bill Melugin essentially got that video right there. This is the new stuff. This was taken, you know who took this? A guy named Jack. And he was out there in San Diego with a GoPro. He's apparently a lifelong San Diego resident, and he took these images. Obviously, what's going on, in addition to essentially beaching the boats, and it's becoming more and more common, is the smugglers, these human smugglers, are stealing a boat because it's not their boat. They can't buy a boat and then do that. That doesn't make business sense. So they're stealing boats, doing that. Last week, Ainsley, when you were talking about the La Jolla situation, that particular, when they ran into that upscale area, naturally, just like Californians, Good Samaritan swimmers swam out to pick up the trash that the illegals had left behind, and a lot of the trash included fuel cans that were leaking into the water. But this is just a new way of getting the migrants, who pay thousands of dollars per head, in some cases tens of thousands, into the United States. Those are what you call gotaways. Those are like the people we don't know if they've got backpacks full of fentanyl. We just don't know. But it's more and more common.
All right. By the way, good to know we're running out of fighting age men. Almost everybody that comes in here filling up our migrant centers, all young men who are running for their lives, the ones that actually give their story. And again, what are they doing here? Why aren't they staying in their own country? But in California, they're not going to even be pursued.
In San Diego, they're releasing a lot of these migrants into the neighborhoods. They said from October to December of last year, 2023, on average, they were releasing 637 per day. That doesn't include the ones that cross over illegally and get in the cars and get away.
And by the way, huge gang problems there. A lot of them go right from one gang to the next gang.
My brother-in-law lives right there on the water, right next to the tracks, and it's a problem. It is a significant problem. Meanwhile, we've been talking about the migrant situation. Last week, when we flew out of New Hampshire, we wound up taking off from the airport. Lawrence and I were at Boston Logan last week, and Lawrence, we were talking about, and you're in Boston right now, we were talking about how Boston Logan is being used to house migrants. Today is the last day they're going to do that. They got a lot of bad publicity, and then now they're moving them someplace else, right?
Yeah, they not only are moving them, they have moved them, and according to our law enforcement sources, they moved them in the middle of the night. And if you look at the door behind us, it may be hard for our camera guy, Nathan Great, to actually see it, there is a sign on the door that says not open to the public. The interesting thing about that, guys, the public is paying for this, and nothing paints the picture more than when you look at the poverty rate here in Boston. It's at 17%. In this community, the Roxbury community, it's over 28%. So you got a lot of the residents that are frustrated, not because they're not compassionate to migrants and they don't understand people wanting a better life. They're saying they're currently struggling right now, trying to make ends meet, and their tax dollars are going to provide for illegal migrants, guys.
Yeah, but they're not putting them in nice places. They're not going to put them in the rich section. They're going to put them in the working class section because rich people don't want illegal immigrants. They just want to say they're welcome here, but not near them. Right, Lawrence?
That's the agitation when you talk to the Black and Latino community that are here in this country legally. They're saying, why are they still considered the bottom of the barrel when it comes to these politicians? And of course, you know, the people with the money are saying, no, we don't want that. Meanwhile, they're donating to all the campaigns saying that they're so compassionate, but when push comes to shove, they want something different. Right. And you know, when you talk to the residents out here as well, when you talk about their struggle and everything, their kids don't have a quality education. Yeah. We've already talked about the poverty. So again, what are they going to do about this? And are they going to fix the communities first before they start providing for the migrants? Yeah. That's yet to be determined,
and it's happening everywhere. Remember a few weeks ago, we did the story in Brooklyn, where it wasn't one of the best neighborhoods in Brooklyn, wasn't the wealthy area. They told the kids, don't come to school. We're going to use your gymnasium on the second floor to house migrants.
Because it was cold. And of course, it's really cold in Boston, too. Lawrence is going to be there all morning long. But thank you very much, Lawrence, for going back up there.
So they're going to Roxbury, where 45% of the population are black, 28% are Hispanic and Latino, and 14% are white. So don't put them in the nice areas, because then there might be a Martha's Vineyard moment where suddenly people realize the illegal immigrants have come home to say hello, and they don't want to meet them. Meanwhile, to another Fox News alert. A new video obtained by Fox News Digital shows the hosts of the Kansas City Chiefs watch party in cuffs moments after 3 of his friends were found frozen to death in his backyard.
Plus, we now know that host apparently has checked into rehab after the tragedy, and a source close to his family says he's facing his addiction head on, but we don't know exactly what he's addicted to.
Yeah, Brooke Singman is here with the latest. Brooke, even though we saw him in handcuffs, he wasn't arrested, right? The police are saying that he's 100% not being investigated as this is not a homicide.
Yeah, that's right, Ainsley. Good morning, you guys. That watch party host, Jordan Willis, was later released by police, and we're now learning that he checked himself into rehab soon after. So a source close to his family tells us, quote, after the shocking loss of his 3 close friends under extremely tragic circumstances, Jordan recognized that he had a problem with addiction. It's been nearly a month since the tragedy, and the families are still demanding answers as they await the results of toxicology reports.
It's very odd. Speaking of the timing of everything, well, since so much of this is relying on Jordan, I fear that we may not get the full truth because of the story that's ever changing all the time. The initial investigation itself, like did they do toxicology on Jordan himself as well to maybe see if the same things were in his system that would be in theirs?
Willis is not facing any charges at this point, and police insist that the deaths are not being investigated as homicides. Guys.
Brooke, thank you very much. Remember we were talking last week about the 5th friend who left at 11 o'clock, and he told the cops, last time I saw him alive, they were all sitting on the couch watching Jeopardy. Well, apparently he allegedly texted other friends about drug use at the house. And so and there you can see the host right there, Jordan Willis, being handcuffed by cops. Apparently got in the cruiser. The cuffs were not on him. But nonetheless, it all comes down to the toxicology report. What exactly, if any, drugs were in their systems at the time they died?
Remember Dr. Bodden a few days ago, I was watching him being interviewed about this, and he said that they definitely have the toxicology results back. They're just not probably releasing them to the public.
Because they're trying to figure out who they got the drugs from.
One of the spouses says, my husband was not addicted to drugs, so this does not make any sense.
I mean, they're
or
in their late
never
30s,
did drugs.
they have kids, you know.
And one was found in a chair sitting outside. I mean, in a I guess, you know,
Like
one
a
of those
lawn
foldable
chair?
chairs. Yeah, lawn chair.
Well, a neighbor said 2 of the men were supposedly seen arriving at the house with 2 30-packs of beer. A lot of guys do that. They go to these watch parties.
It was a football game.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
normal.
I wonder if they went outside to have a cigarette or something. If they were sitting in the chair, maybe they were out there. It was 30-degree weather. They just were found several days
Well, if you're
later
locked out of the house, knock on the next door neighbor, right? It's a rental house.
I don't think that was
freeze
the
to death.
situation. I think they just passed out or something.
It had
Who
to be
knows?
drugs.
We just need more answers.
Yeah. All right, now to your headlines, starting with a Fox News alert. The U.S. launching self-defense strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen overnight. The military action comes as the Biden administration officially blames an Iran-backed militant group, the Islamic Resistance, for the attack in Jordan that killed the 3 U.S. soldiers over the weekend. White House officials say the U.S. is not looking for a war with Iran, but the military response could last for weeks. There have been at least 166 attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East since October 17th. And happening today, grieving parents are going door to door on Capitol Hill. They're urging lawmakers to rein in big tech. This comes one day after Meta's CEO Mark Zuckerberg was forced to apologize to the families during yesterday's hearing on child safety online.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry speaking to to get through the things that your family is.
He was asked to apologize, and he stood up and he turned to the parents, and he did. The parents telling lawmakers social media has led to the deaths of their children. Zuckerberg insists Meta's working to block harmful content. Clorox, the latest business in Oakland, California, to hire security to protect their employees. The company hired additional guards to escort workers to their parking lots, transit hubs, and even restaurants and coffee shops. Also in Oakland, one Denny location is shutting its doors after 54 years. The company claims the surge in crime is the reason why. Didn't you work there at Denny's? You went on a date there or something, Brian.
I did not go on a date at Denny's. Why would you say that? Who goes to a
All right,
breakfast?
think about that. We'll talk to you in a minute. Let me get to this story. Actor Alec Baldwin pleading not guilty to involuntary manslaughter in connection with the deadly 2021 Rust movie set shooting. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed when a prop gun with a live round went off. The initial charges were dropped last year, but New Mexico prosecutors refiling following results from a new analysis on that gun. Baldwin has repeatedly denied pulling the trigger. He faces up to 18 months in prison if he is convicted. And new overnight, a private Cygnus cargo craft just arrived at the International Space Station with tons of supplies on it and scientific hardware. It did haul more than 8,000 pounds of supplies. The Cygnus craft launched from a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket out of Cape Canaveral, Florida. And now to a Fox weather alert. Satellite images show a so-called Pineapple Express that's spinning off the West Coast. It's expected to blast California with flooding and snow and strong winds today. Flood alerts are issued for more than 20 million people. Some areas even seeing wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. So let's check in with our senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, for our Fox weather forecast. Hey, Janice.
Yep, we're definitely following that story. And the heat across the country, over 250 million enjoying above average temperatures, 10 to even 25 degrees above where it should be this time of year. So potential record highs, especially across the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Where's that cold air? Well, we might see some of it later this weekend into next week, and that might give us some more wintry weather and colder weather as we get into the mid-February region. Here's our forecast today. As Ainsley mentioned, we have this stream of moisture that originates from Hawaii, all of this tropical moisture moving into the West Coast. That means heavy rain for areas that don't typically do well with heavy rain, and that is the coast of California and the burn areas, and then the snow, mountain snow for the Sierra Nevada in towards the Rockies. Here's the future radar. So a new storm system moves in this weekend. It's going to travel across the plain states, and then another one as we get into Monday. So there's the storm track, and then if we get that cold air, we're going to start to see maybe a little more wintry weather for areas that are really enjoying springtime weather this week. Steve, Ainsley, Brian, over to you.
You're right. Punxsutawney Phil tomorrow when you're at
Yes.
Groundhog Day might be wearing a swimsuit.
I've never seen that happen, but I suppose
That
anything
warm.
is possible.
All right.
He
What
just
time-
gets really mad
what
when
time
people
does
wake
that
him
happen?
up.
When's the sun-
7:30-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll
So
see
watch.
About
Are you leaving in the
25 hours
morning
from
or are you
I
leaving
am
tonight?
leaving right after this show.
All right.
All right.
Travel safely.
Okay.
Brian likes to keep tabs on me.
Right. I give in a little Apple tag.
Yeah, right.
I follow you
I
around.
actually do love your coverage there.
Oh, yeah.
It's very
because
fun.
You see the same people. Same people come every year, right?
Every year. And there's one lady, I have a present for you guys. I'm going to show it to you later, but she knit these things that I'm going to give you for Groundhog Day.
I have seen it.
It's adorable.
It is adorable.
Yeah.
Do you wear the same outfit every year, too?
Yeah, it is something we will all
You'll
wear.
have to tune in to see if
Yeah.
I wore the same thing last year.
Let's
I
find out.
remember. All right. JD?
Brian, will you wear a hat, maybe?
No, I don't wear
No,
that.
okay.
No. Thank you.
There goes the present.
There you go.
That's okay.
Would you, if she knit you gloves, would you wear them?
Yes.
Maybe a scarf.
I would do that.
Next year.
It's really cute. I saw it in the hall. All right.
Thank you.
Coming up on this
Hook me a rug.
first day of February, President Biden finally set to visit East Palestine, Ohio, as the White House dodges questions whether or not it was, what took him so long, and would he drink the water there?
This is not about some sort of political stunt here. This is not what this is about.
Okay, so he probably won't. He'll take a bottle of water. Our next guest has family from East Palestine and says the catastrophe marked an inflection point for Trump, not Biden. That's next.
And the CEO of TikTok tells Ted Cruz kids in China have a different experience because the app is not available there.
There's not a difference between what kids see in China and what kids see here?
Senator, TikTok is not available in China. It's a separate experience there.
Curious.
Not good for their kids,
Oh, yeah.
but fine for ours.
It's fantastic.
Pete Hegseth's going to join us on the controversy.
Yeah, the FBI director wouldn't tell us if we should ban it or not. He doesn't want to get into politics. Plus, star quarterback Patrick Mahomes calling a foul after a video of him without a shirt on reveals a dad bod.
When the president is in East Palestine, will he drink the water there?
I mean, look, what I can tell you is the president's focus has been to do everything that he can to support this community from day one. We get what's going on the ground. We understand what's going on. That's why we've had the EPA. That's why we had DOT. That's why we had HHS. That's why we've had FEMA on the ground. This is not about some sort of like political stunt here.
Really? Okay. That puts that story to rest. The White House dodging questions on President Biden's upcoming visit to East Palestine this month. 1 year since the devastating toxic train derailment, as many residents questioned the timing, including columnist Selena Zito. She has family from East Palestine. She says the crisis there will be remembered as Trump's inflection point. First, on the Trump point. What do you mean Trump's inflection point?
So last February 22nd, when Donald Trump decided to go to East Palestine, he wasn't particularly in the best place in the polls, in particular among Republicans. They were so exasperated after what happened with the Senate race and the Senate races and not winning with candidates that he had supported. So there was sort of a malaise among Trump voters, and DeSantis was, sort of neck and neck with him in that moment, in that time period. He shows up in this town, and I wrote it down. I still have it in my reporter's notebook. If he resurrects his career, if he resurrects his moment and becomes at the top of the polls, right. It happened that day. Because he showed up.
All right, so Selena, that's for Trump. Now, the president comes back about a year later, hasn't picked a date yet. What's this about? Doesn't it also highlight that it's been a year and now you show up? Doesn't it also highlight he doesn't know what's going to hit him? And what is he actually up to in doing this?
So yes, it absolutely highlights that he never showed up before. And I don't think this is necessarily about him. But I think it's about Senator Sherrod Brown, the Democrat that has represented that state in the Senate since 2006, but also Senator Casey, because the town of Darlington, right across the state line, East Palestine is on the state line, is also up for re-election. And he, I suspect, I don't know this, will probably highlight that Senator Brown had shown up, that Senator Casey had shown up, and he's trying to uplift them with the working class voter.
Well, we'll see what happens. And here's the biggest question. How are they doing? How is the land? Can you drink the water? Are these kids back in school? Can they sell their house if they chose to?
Yeah, there's a real sense of being stuck right now. This is a town that has always had generational treasure, right? It's not one of those towns that was on its knees. It's a very beautiful town, very picturesque. However, everything about the moment before February 3rd is now tainted by what happened on that day and the subsequent controlled burn. People cannot sell their homes at the value they would have had on February 2nd, 2023.
So, and Selena, real quick, are they just going to hug it out? Or do you think the president's got a check or something with him that will try to turn this story his direction?
I think it's too late to turn the story in his direction. What he's going to attempt to do is turn it in a direction positively for Brown and positively for Casey. I suspect that's what risk is about.
And both those candidates have their hands full in running for re-election. They're both in really tough fights. Selena Zito, all over the story, whose great-grandfather was born in East Palestine, really knows this story, too. Thanks so much, Selena, putting it in perspective. We'll wait for the president to give us a date. Thanks, Selena.
Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. Let's go over to Steve, who's been working on the headlines. Steve.
I've got some headlines indeed. This just in. The European Union has agreed to a 50 billion euro aid package for Ukraine. The deal comes despite weeks of threats by Hungary to veto the move. The European Council president posting on X that the deal, quote, locks in steadfast, long-term, predictable funding for Ukraine. EU is taking leadership and responsibility in support for Ukraine. We know what is at stake, they say. Still nothing from our Congress. Meanwhile, a $78 billion tax bill is heading to the Senate after clearing the House overnight in a bipartisan vote. Did you hear about this? The bill would temporarily expand the child tax credit and make it easier for families to qualify. The Democrats wanted that. It also allows for more tax breaks over time and revives tax breaks for businesses that Republicans passed back in 2017. So both parties got something they wanted. And Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes reacting to a not so flattering image of him going viral. I don't understand what the trouble is. In response, he's the greatest of all time. In response to the shirtless, I'm from Kansas City. In response to the shirtless photo from inside the NFL, Mahomes writing on X, quote, "Yo, why do they have to do that like that? Why do they have to do me like that, rather? Hashtag dad bod season. Like, I got kids." The father of two was celebrating the Chiefs' AFC Championship win ahead of his 4th Super Bowl appearance in 5 seasons, where I predict the Kansas City Chiefs will once again win. But then again, I'm partisan. All right, coming up, Boston turns a recreation center serving underprivileged kids. Hi, Brian, you're there too.
What, did you want me to join you?
I don't know. It said Steve. Keep reading.
Okay.
Anyway, Lawrence is in Boston at a migrant shelter, and that is coming up. But first, squad members Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib both voting no on a measure barring Hamas terrorists from entering the United States. Terrorists. They're okay with it, apparently. Pete Hegseth says he wished he was surprised, and he is coming up next. As you know, Hamas murdered more than 1,400 Israelis, and they still hold more than 100 of them hostage somewhere. So it would seem that banning them from entering the United States would be a no-brainer, right? But apparently squad members Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush disagree, as the only 2 members of Congress voting against a ban last night. Let them in, they say. Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth joins us right now from the Hegseth compound. Pete, let's just examine. They are Hamas terrorists. Okay, Hamas murdered all those people, and they're terrorists. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd let either one of them in, but both of them are okay with them.
Absolutely. It's actually very forward-looking for them. They're looking out for higher education. Who are going to be the guest lecturers at Harvard and Columbia and the University of Michigan without Hamas terrorists? We're in short supply, or special guests at their Democratic Socialist of America fundraisers between the 2 of them. The nickname for their group has been, and they've sort of denied it, right? The Hamas Caucus, the squad, the Hamas Caucus. Well, now 2 of them have just come out and said, well, we're okay with Hamas entering the United States. They say the law is redundant, Steve. That's their argument. The argument, they're saying it would already be on the books that these people would not be allowed in. Really? Have you seen our immigration system? By the way, if Hamas members wanted to get into our country, just get a one-way ticket to Mexico City. And that's currently the easiest way to get into our country. So it doesn't actually bar them because of our open borders, but it is demonstrative of their upside-down world, which says, no, the real terrorists are the United States of America, are the IDF, and the freedom fighters are the Hamas terrorists who massacred 1,200 innocent people. That's their worldview, and they're elected members of Congress, and their voters continue to vote for them. It's who they are, and we should believe them at this point.
Well, Tlaib put out a statement last night afterwards, and you know who she blames for this whole thing? Republicans, of course. She writes, it's just another Republican messaging bill being used to incite anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, and anti-Muslim hatred that makes communities like ours unsafe. It's very clear. We don't want Hamas here. No. We don't want terrorists here. It's that easy.
Yes. Or if you want to represent the Muslim community, stand up and say, yes, we are pro-Muslim, pro-Arab, pro-Palestinian, but we are anti-Hamas. Right. And we want to be very clear about who we are and who we aren't. And she failed in that test.
All right. Meanwhile, let's talk about something else that happened on Capitol Hill yesterday. The Senate Judiciary Committee brought in some of the big shots from the social media companies that we know that their products give a dopamine rush to everybody who uses it, particularly the kids. Here, listen to what Senator Cruz asked the CEO of TikTok about, and then we will just wonder, what exactly are they doing? Listen to this.
On TikTok in China, you are promoting to kids science and math videos, educational videos, and you limit the amount of time kids can be on TikTok. In the United States, you are promoting to kids self-harm videos and anti-Israel propaganda. Why is there such a dramatic difference
Senator, that is just not accurate. There's
not a difference between what kids see in China and what kids see here?
Senator, TikTok is not available in China. It's a separate experience there.
TikTok is not available in China because the Chinese understand what mind control it has.
Excuse me, Senator. Your question answers itself. Why would we poison our own kids?
Right.
When we can poison yours, our biggest geopolitical foe? Because it's like Maximus in the Gladiator in the arena saying, "Are you not entertained? Like, haven't we given you this amazing app TikTok where your kids can dance and trans themselves and be distracted so you don't have to parent them?" While we teach our kids science and math on a different app, because of course that's what we would do. The fact that we allow this is one of many, but actually near the top of the list, most foolish things we are doing in our society. We are not parenting. We are handing our kids these, and then we're handing them nonsense that's manipulating their brain. It's like giving the Soviets a portal into our kids in the 80s. Like, it's insane.
And you've got kids, and I've got kids, and I don't like my kid. Your kids are still relatively young. My kids are on social media.
You don't like your kids?
My kids look at social media. No, I know. Mine are just a little bigger than yours. But ultimately, what is going on with our kids and education, that's what your Poison Ivy special 100%. Is about. And it's going to run Sunday at 10 p.m. We're all going to be watching, Pete.
Steve, these two topics we did this morning are perfect for this.
Yep.
Like, what are our kids learning and what kind of influences do we have? We saw after October 7th, these universities become pro-Hamas entities. How did we get here? Where's the money coming from? And why can't you trust these Ivy League institutions? Sure. On Fox this weekend, Sunday night. Check it out.
I was just thinking, my kids could actually babysit your kids. So I'll find out when Peter Ducey has got a couple of days off and he can
Anytime.
Fly. Yeah, indeed. All right.
Anytime.
All right. Coming up on this Thursday, Boston has turned a recreation center serving underprivileged kids into a migrant shelter. They're not helping those kids right now. Lawrence Jones is outside the shelter as the community asks why this isn't happening in more affluent areas. But first, the California crime crisis getting personal for Governor Newsom. The employee at a Target who blamed him directly to his face for his soft on crime policies. Didn't realize she was talking to the governor. And
hello, xin chào các bạn. Chào mừng các bạn đã quay trở lại với channel của mình. Về hôm nay, mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn cách làm một con rồng bằng giấy như thế này. Và để làm một con rồng bằng giấy thì các bạn cần chuẩn bị cho mình thứ nhất đó chính là một tờ giấy màu như thế này, hoặc là các cái màu khác tùy theo cái sở thích của các bạn. Và thứ hai đó chính là một chiếc kiếm như thế này nhé. Và để làm cái con rồng như thế này thì mình chỉ cần những cái bước gấp giấy rất là đơn giản thôi. Và không nói nhiều nữa, mình sẽ bắt đầu video hướng dẫn cho mọi người làm một con rồng bằng giấy như thế này. Bắt đầu thôi. Ok, và đầu tiên các bạn sẽ cắt cho mình một cái tờ giấy hình vuông bằng cách là các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy này lại thành một cái hình tam giác. Đây, thì các bạn sẽ gấp nó lại như thế này. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ cắt bỏ phần này cho mình. Sau đó các bạn sẽ cắt bỏ phần này cho mình. Đây, như thế này. Về sau khi cắt cái phần giấy này thì mình sẽ được với phần giấy như thế này. Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ gấp nó vào như thế này cho mình. Rồi sau đó các bạn sẽ nhét cái phần này. Thì để nó tạo ra được một cái phần nếp như thế này Tiếp theo thì các bạn sẽ gấp cái phần giấy đây lại thành hình tam giác. Đây thì các bạn sẽ viết cái phần này lại cho mình. Đây, như thế này. Về tiếp theo, các bạn sẽ ép cái phần giấy này. Đây, các bạn sẽ ép cái phần giấy này xuống ở phía dưới này. Đó, thì các bạn sẽ ép nó xuống như thế này cho mình. Đây, như thế này. Về tiếp theo các bạn sẽ ép cái phần giấy này vào trong, sao cho cái phần mũi nhọn nó sẽ đi vào đây nha. Đây thì mình sẽ ép nó ra một xíu như này. Sau đó thì mình sẽ ép cái phần giấy này vào trong. Đây, thì mình sẽ ép nó vào trong như thế này, sao cho cái phần mũi nhọn này nó đi trùng, cái nếp này nó sẽ trùng với lại cái đường ở đây nha. Đó, các bạn sẽ miết cái phần này lại cho mình. Đây, như thế này. Và tiếp theo ở cái phần giấy này mình cũng sẽ làm tương tự như vậy. Đây, như thế này. Và sau đó các bạn sẽ miết cái phần này lại cho mình. Đây, thì mình sẽ được một cái phần giấy như thế này. Đấy.